Well, hello, welcome to One Man's Faith today. My name is Neil Owen. Glad to have you with me, and we're going to jump in. And as we've been doing, well, no, let's do something a little different because, this is a special time of the year, and you know how it is. You can't watch TV and see your normal shows because it's Christmas. I shouldn't be that way, should I? It only comes once a year, but it's also another time, too. And that is it's also for our Jewish brothers and sisters a time of celebration, and the celebration is what is called Hanukkah. Now, what is Hanukkah? Why do I care? Did Jesus ever celebrate Hanukkah? Well, he did. He did. It says that he. I'm switching over right now, so I'm just trying to. I hadn't thought about doing this, but I felt we ought to look at it just for a little bit, because it's a special time of the year. It's special because it's a time that we celebrate the birth of Jesus, which we've got a couple of weeks we can still look at that. But starting the evening of the 12th going into Wednesday the 13th is the start of the 8-day feast called Hanukkah. And Hanukkah is about the Lord stepping in and intervening for and with the Jewish nation during the time that what's called the silent years. There's about a 400 period of time from the end of the Old Testament, which I guess would be kind of, where Malachi ends, and there's a couple other books there that end there at the same time. There's a 400-year period that are called the silent years because there was no writing, biblical writings. There were no prophets that spoke. There were no books that appeared to be written, at least books that made it into what we call the Bible. Now, there were the book of Maccabees. There are a couple others that may have been written at that time, but for the most part, it was a time of silence on God's part. Now things were happening. There was a group of Jewish people who wanted to mix in with the Greeks and the Greek way of thinking and bring in the Greek festivities and even the Greek gods. They want to introduce those and kind of commingle with the Jewish faith. And that's not a good thing to do. That'd be like taking your Christianity and mixing it with another, let's say Buddhism. They just don't go together. They are totally different entities. It's like. Now there's a kind of a movement. I think it's slowed down some, but it's called Chrislam. It's taking Christianity and mixing it with Islam, the Islamic faith. And people, listen. Muhammad and Allah are not the same as our God. Allah and Yahweh are not the same. The Allah of the Islamic faith is a rather harsh put aside and even what's the word I want? Well, Allah sees nothing wrong with killing people, okay? Especially, according to Muhammad, if you don't believe in the Islamic faith. You're considered a Gentile, somebody that can be eradicated unless you believe. And this is what the Islamic faith does. It goes around, and you see this. If people will not succumb and become a part of the Islamic faith, they behead them. This is happening to a lot of people, even children. And to kind of towards the extreme, they see nothing wrong with if a woman won't accept Allah and wants to be a Christian, they see nothing wrong with raping her and then killing her. You know, it's not the same God that you and I, under Yahweh, serve. And so, in a sense, this was happening in the Islamic faith. I mean, excuse me, in the Hebrew faith. They were mixing with Greek, and it was called being Hellenistic. Being Hellenistic, and a Hellenistic movement was starting, and they were trying to kind of more than just mix, but take over. And they were performing what were called profane acts, even within the temple. Not just bringing sacrifices that were worthy of the Lord, but bringing sacrifices from unclean animals, pigs, for one thing. And so this was starting to happen. And there were movements to bring in and create a more Hellenistic society during this time. In John chapter 10, it says, at the time of the Feast of Dedication, this is 10:22, at the time the Feast of Dedication took place in Jerusalem, it was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple of the portico of Solomon. Okay? The temple or the Feast of Dedication is Hanukkah. And as you see, it was winter. Jerusalem winters are like Nevada winters. As a matter of fact, let me just see what the, I can even let you know what the temperature now in Jerusalem is. I do this all the time because I want to, I don't know, I like to keep up. Oh, it's 53 degrees, mostly cloudy in Jerusalem right now. They have a low of 40. So it's a similar weather than what we have here. So when it was wintertime there, it was, you know, it's wintertime here. And so he was there, and the Feast of Dedication is what is mentioned here. He was there for that. Hanukkah happened during Antiochus III. He was the king of Syria, and he waged war against Egypt, and he took the possession of the land of Israel. And at the beginning of his reign, he was favorably disposed toward the Jews and accorded them some privileges. Later on, when he was beaten by the Romans and compelled to pay heavy taxes, the burden fell upon the various peoples of his empire to pay those extra taxes, okay? And all this was during what is called that 400-year period of silence. But what happened, the king sent out an emissary to try and force people to become more Assyrian or Greekish, okay? And they went into a certain town, and they were trying to force the priest there, who was a Maccabee, to sacrifice a pig. And he wouldn't do it, and a revolt rose up, and they ran him off. And eventually, the Maccabees picked up enough support that they more or less ran the Assyrians out of Jerusalem and rededicated the temple. That's why it's called the Feast of Dedication. They ran them out, they cleansed the temple, and they were going to start doing their regular sacrifices. However, they didn't have oil, fresh oil, for the lamps, for the menorah, in other words, in the temple. And so it was going to take 8 days to press enough olives to get enough oil to continue on the process of lighting the lamp in the temple. In the meantime, they went ahead and lit the menorah, and it stayed lit for 8 days. And with that, I'll leave you in suspense because we got to take a break. So let's go ahead and take it. You get a cup of coffee, and I'll be right back.